Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and in this video I want to share with you how to create a navigation HUD using shaders. You'll be surprised how easy this is to implement using shaders. You actually only use 4 functions to do what you are seeing now on the screen. So without further ado guys, let's begin. Hey, if you're new to my channel, I'm Hero Serrano and I develop game engines. I've been doing this for about 8 years now, and now I'm here on YouTube sharing with you everything that I know, that I've learned about game engines and computer graphics. Alright, so how will you do something like this? How will you create this navigation HUD and have the effect that the plane is moving around and you see the compass line, the navigation HUD also moving along with the airplane? Again, we are going to use 4 functions, and they are fract, floor, the step function, and the modulus function. So let me show you how they work. All right, so here I have my fragment shader. I'm using the metal shading language, but don't worry, you can implement this in OpenGL. It's basically straightforward. You don't even have to, I wouldn't even call it porting because it's so simple, you'll get it. All right, so before we start, let me actually change the color of the layer to a different color. All right, and again, this is my shader, my fragment shader, and I'm using my game engine actually to show you how everything works. All right, so let me begin by changing the color to red. So I'm going to do float 3. Just so you know what we are doing. All right, and there you go. So I'm basically going to be rendering on this layer, if you want to call it like that. All right, so like I mentioned, the first thing that we're going to use, the first function that we are going to use is the frag function, and the frag function basically divides the space by the amount that you specify. So for example, let's say that my space, which is st, is scaled by 6. I can break up the space using fract. So I can do something float to fid fract of st. And so that you can actually see what's happening, I'm going to assign the color of the layer in this instance to represent FID and 1.0. Right. So if I save this and I run my shader, you're going to see something like this, and you're going to see that we have like basically 6, like a grid of 6 by 6. Now I don't like to use this whenever I'm experimenting. I actually prefer to use this other technique, which is very simple. I know what you do basically is to say this: if fid.x is greater than 0.95 or fid.y is greater than 0.95, then I'll just change this to like the red component, the red component to 1. And that makes it a lot easier for you to actually visualize the whole space being broken up. Right, so save that, and we get something like that. Again, frag will divide your space, right? So let's say I can divide my space into a grid of 4 by 4. I'll get something like this, right? 4 by 4. In this case, I want it to be 6 by 6. All right. Now the other function that we're going to use is floor, and combining fract and floor is actually a very, very powerful technique, because with fract you divide space, and floor you actually are able to select a particular grid in the whole system of grids, right? So for example, let me show you this. Right, so let's say I want to select this particular section of the grid, right? By using floor, and I'm going to call it ID, I will be able to do that. I'm going to say if iid.x is equals to 0 and iid.y is equals to 0. I'm going to say I want to color the green component of the color. I'm going to set the green component of the color to 1. right? And what's going to happen is that I'm basically going to render or paint that segment to green, right? You can specify, for example, this particular section, right? So this would be 0, 1, 2, 3, x3, 0, 1, 2. So 3 and 2 will actually allow me to select this particular section of the grid, right? Now this is very powerful, right? Because we're going to use this. What I want now is I actually want my navigation HUD to be in position here on that upper part of my grid, right? So that will correspond to y equals to 0, right? So I'm going to change this to 0. And basically, if I do this, you are going to see that now my HUD grid is equals to boom. So we're gonna be rendering on this section. All right. So now let me put a pause here, all right? Because we are going to use the step function now, and the step function basically acts as an if statement. Basically, you tell them, whatever value is greater than this particular number, make it a 1, else make it a 0. That's all what it does, right? So in this case, I can literally say that I can render a particular section in this segment to be white and the other one to be clear. Now, before I go on and do that, I need to explain to you that since we broke up the whole space using frags, each of the space now, they range. The range of the space goes from 0 to 1, 0 to 1, 0 to 1, right? So now when I use a step, let's say I say a step of 0.9, make it greater. I'm sorry, let me go back. So now if I do something like this, hopefully that will clear everything up. Float C, a step 0.9 of fid.x. What I'm doing here is I'm saying, hey, for everything that is less than 0.9, make it black, make it clear. For everything else, make it white, all right, or make it 1, right? That's basically what I'm doing here, and I'm going to show you that. So basically, what I can do here is I can say color float 3C, right? Now when I do this, you're going to see that. Again, I can change this step to make it 5 if I want to, right? Basically, everything less than 0.5 will be, black 0. Everything else will be 1. If you are having problem visualizing it, it's basically like an if statement. That's how I use it. All right, so we're gonna do that. Cool. So we have that. Now, before we move on, obviously what we want is that whenever I move my controller, right, whenever I move the plane, I also want those lines to move, right? So it signifies the whole movement of the navigation HUD, right? So what you need to do, and this is on your game or in your game engine, is that you need to pass that information from your controller, from your game engine to the shader. In this instance, in my instance, what I do is basically I change this, I send this uniform value to my shader, and let me just copy it because we're gonna need this. And what I do here is basically I change my x coordinate, right? st.x, right? So when I do this, you're gonna see that when I move, this is nothing is happening. Let me save it. Let me click it. Okay, now you're gonna see now when I move my plane, my grid lines are also moving, right? And that's because whenever I move my, like the thumbstick, I'm sending the x coordinate as a uniform to the GPU, and that is changing basically the space of my whole shader. That's what's happening, right? Now, if you see a navigation HUD, you will obviously notice that one line is usually long and the other one are shorter. The long lines will represent basically the north, east, southwest, the directions, and the other ones, you know, they won't do that, right? But we want to do that, right? So what we want is we want to select those lines in my navigation HUD and keep them as you know, with their same length, but the other ones I want to make them shorter. All right, so what can I do, right? To do that, you can use the modulus function that will help you basically select in this case every fourth line to keep it as long, and if it's not, then just make it shorter, right? So we are going to do that. Let me do float t. We're going to use modulus, the modulus function, and I'm going to say fid.x and every fourth one, because that's what I'm interested in. All right, so what I want is this. I want to say if t is not equals to 0, right, which means it's not every fourth line, I want to make it shorter. And the way of how I'm going to do that is basically I'm going to multiply my lines by another step function that will basically decrease the length of it, right? So c, which represents my line, I'm going to multiply that times, let's say 0.6 fid.y, and I need to make this 1 minus 0. All right, so let's see what happens when I do that. So I saved it, boom, and oh, guess what? Everything changed. That's not what I needed to have. Oh, I'm sorry. I actually made a mistake here. It's not FID, it's IID. Remember, because I want to select the particular segment, right? So that's a mistake. It should be IID. And now you're gonna see how every fourth line stayed the same, but the other three basically were shorter. Again, I multiplied that by another step function. So think about it like this. We have the big one, then we have a shorter step function, and if you multiply them, the result will be the shorter one. Right? So now if I move this, you're gonna see how everything changes, right? Now, what I'm going to do next is basically I want to move or translate the lines to be right in the center. All right. Now, this is very simple to do by simply adding a vector to my FID. However, I want you to keep the grid line available for you so you can actually visualize what's happening. So what I'm going to do something very simple, which basically I'm just going to create a new variable, call it grid line, and basically I'm just going to do a fract. Again, it's more so that you can see the grid line, and it's not going to change anything. And this one, I'm also going to change this grid line and grid line. All right, so we save this, boom, and you're going to see that nothing really changed now. Right? Okay. So what are we gonna do next? Right? We have that. Like I mentioned, what we want is we want to translate those lines, right? And all what we need to do in this case is just add the vector float 0.5 and 0. And what's going to happen is now that my lines are going to be moved over just like that, just how I was telling you, right? Boom, that's it. So now what is next? Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to select this particular row, right? And then we are going to highlight the particular square right underneath the long lines. And that will basically be our placeholder for a letter, right? For like the letter north, N, east, west, south. Did I say letter? Then I gave you a word. You know what I meant, right? Like letter like N, S, W, and E for the directions. So let's see. Now I know that this one is 0, then this one should be 1. So what I do now is else if iid.y is equals to 1. And just for clarity, I'm going to make this so green so you can see it, that we're going to select that one. All right, so we're going to select those lines. Now we are going to use the modulus function again, but instead of choosing every fourth, I want to choose every 16. Why? Because we have 4 directions basically, right? So I'm going to do float m modulus of iid.x 16.0. all right, and now here, depending on where I'm at, I'm going to, as a placeholder, I'm going to change the color. All right, so I can say if m is equals to 0, I want the color of red, the red component to be 1. Else, if m is equals to 4, I want the blue component to be 1. Else, if m is equals to 8, I want the color green to be 1. And else, if m is equals to 12, I want the color RB to be 1, right? So basically I'm highlighting the particular segment of the grid that I want to use as a placeholder, right? So if I do this and I run this, you're gonna see that now whenever I rotate, you're gonna see how we have like different colors for all of the particular directions, right? So now what can you do with this, right? Well, now you can go ahead and add a letter that represents the direction, just how I did in my in the demo that I showed you in the beginning of the video. It's very simple. Here, instead of setting this to particular color, you just basically just render a letter. Or you can do whatever you want once you have this. But and essentially, this is basically how you can create a navigation HUD. It's very, very, very simple how you can do this. It doesn't take too much work, and if you understand shader mathematics, you'll be surprised that this will not take more than 10 minutes to implement. It's very cool. So I hope you like it. I'm actually going to share with you the whole code so that you can actually study it if you are interested. I'm going to put it in my Discord server, so make sure to join my Discord server, and I'm going to put it there under the shader channel. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so right now. I usually go live I'm on YouTube, and I like to share what I'm learning. Please subscribe, because I have decided that this year I'm going to be making more game engine videos as well. I want to show you how to develop your own game engine, but I also want to show you or share with you how to work with shaders, because it is very important to know how to use shaders. Believe me, this is the cool part about developing your own game and developing your own game engine, right? You get to create your own effects. And if you have a good grasp on shader mathematics, the possibilities are endless, because you can come up with so many different graphical effects, which to me is what I love about game engine development. All right, guys, thank you so much. Please do not forget to click that like button, share this video with your friends, and I'll see you next time.